home, it kind of feels different because it's actually clean and not falling apart. We're having a progressive, each place gets better and better, so let's see what the next place looks like. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes? Okay, thank you, Doug. Correspondence, have letter that Glens Falls is now a stroke center. Those who don't tie at Glens Falls, that's quite a surprise. Got a long way. Committee reports, academic committee.
Okay, we had a nice presentation by Zoll. I think everybody was here, so we don't need to go through that. If anybody needs more information on their rescue pods and their suction device, I was card. Come see me. The stroke protocol, I guess you have up there. I don't know if you want to discuss that now or later.
I think Tom's going to talk about it.
Yeah. You want to talk about it now, Tom? Or?
I was going to do it on QI.
Okay. All right, so we'll do that upon QI. We also talked about CMAC, Motrin and Tylenol have been added to the collaborative protocols. It will be single dose liquid, so you don't have to worry about getting anything to drink. Cordol will be on standing orders, however it's down to 15 milligrams per dose. BLS protocols were approved, they're waiting for the commissioner to sign off on them. Murray mentioned that when they come out to do their field inspections, pretty soon it'll be done on iPads, and you guys will be getting your reports via email. Make sure you have the right email address in, otherwise you'll never get the report. You never know if there's a problem. And Mary, I'm not sure what you're going to do if that's the case. She's not there. Oh, okay. No. And that's, Howard has the EMT course, he just wanted to mention.
Still running.
Okay, and Remo has the EMT course that starts on 2/7. That's basically it from academic.
Okay, thanks. I was not able to make REMSCO. Anyone tell us what happened there?
We held elections. Steve Kroll's the chair, Anne Marie's the vice chair. I'm the secretary, and PJ Keeler is the treasurer. It was pretty uneventful otherwise.
Uneventful otherwise.
What's that?
Uneventful
Yeah,
otherwise.
it was uneventful otherwise.
SEMSCO, Mike.
Collaborative protocols, BLS protocols both passed. There's some question as to what piece of legislation that is moving forward on EMS as an essential service, what it actually says and what it would mean across the state. So there's a conference call for the CMAC members next week. Don, anything else you can think of for that?
No, that's always basically it. Jeremy Cushman is kind of leading a look into seeing if we end up sending a resolution to the commissioner suggesting that EMS be made an essential service, what could the possible downside of that be? So before we end up doing that, we'll end up seeing what those downsides may be. I personally don't see any specific downside other than you won't be able to strike because you're essential service, but there'll be less strikes anyway. And the thought being is funding, because as we know, services are going out. The rent-score bill just went out this past week. It is now defunct as well. So we have multiple agencies through the state that are basically going out because there's not enough funding to keep EMS going. So that was basically it. I can't think of anything else, Mike, that went through. We'll keep you updated on what happens. I guess there are a couple bills in the Assembly now looking at this, from what I understand. And there was an article in the New Yorker, by the way, talking about EMS in rural areas and how the services need more funding. So I want to pick up the New Yorker magazine. I guess it was the last month. They had a big article. That's it.
Tom, you want to talk about?
Yeah. The stroke protocols came out. That's the algorithm. There's also a PowerPoint that goes with it that talks at more length and depth about how the algorithm came about and how it applies now. A couple of the big key points are that this algorithm doesn't replace a Cincinnati stroke scale. So you still have to do that to see if your patient's a candidate for stroke, and then you perform the FAST ED score. And they don't enter into this pathway unless they score a 4 or more. So it says FAST ED greater than 3. So if they don't score a 4, then you treat them like you've treated every other stroke patient up until now. If they score greater than 4, then you go down the algorithm and see how far away the nearest comprehensive stroke center is relative to the closest stroke center, and then whether their symptoms have been present for more than 3.5 hours, basically if they're a TPA candidate or not. So, so that's, those are the recommendations. The flow is pretty easy, takes just a few seconds to learn and understand it. And the FAST ED app is very user-friendly and intuitive, and very, very handy.
It doesn't replace local knowledge because Ellis said it will take some narratives listed as stroke centers.
Yeah, there's still some updates that need to be created on there.
Those have been passed along to the developers of the app, specific to ask them to please refer to the New York State Stroke Center list. And they're going to do that with their next update. Their next update may also allow you to get into the app without having to hit anonymous on the bottom. But for now, in order to get into the app, you either use what do they call it on their tongue?
For what? To get into the app?
A tenant code or anonymous. And
Yeah.
the goal is just to go in under anonymous. But play around with it. It's actually a really cool and user-friendly app, and works pretty easily walking people through.
And I have a copy of the PowerPoint if anybody wants to see that. And it's going to be posted on the Remac website, or, yeah.
There was, I'll just mention, not that I'm saying yea or nay to the fact that this was sent out, but there was some concern that I received personally from different administrators regarding the fact that this was sent out before pre-hospital education actually took place. And that was criticism. So I am just mentioning it for your information, nothing more.
Anything else from QI?
No, we just talked about CARES. So 2018 CARES data for Albany County is ready. Still working on Saratoga and Schenectady County. And then much farther down the line, Rensselaer, Columbia, and Greene County are coming.
Opt-out canceled. Updates. BLS, ALS, BLSFR, no updates. PCR, Empire. Upgrades to EMS charts. Williamsburg, 5 Quad, Waterloo, Malaysia, Rotterdam, Gilliland, Rowan, and Wilton. List of new public access, Brunswick School District updated, Fit the Stars Lake and Clifton Park, which is new, GlaxoSmithKline is an update, New York State Department of Corrections update, Zion Lutheran Church update, St. Basil's Orthodox Church update, Burnt Hills Veterinary Hospital Zoo, New York State EPA's update, Proctor's Theater, Rensselaer County Department of Services at Brown Lake Fire Department updates, David Tola is new, and Green Tech Charter High School is new. New business, EMS Peach Transport Safety.
So in the new protocols, one of the things that's in there is emphasis on pediatric transport safety and how pediatric patients are not to be transported on their parents' laps. The Pediatric Emergency Center at Albany Met and our research coordinator are working to set up a pediatric transport safety day. And we're taking a model off one that's being done down at Orange Regional this week or either this week or next week, and we'll be doing a similar one here. Working with Tim to find the best date and location. We'll probably do it here. We'll continue to have some conversations about that. It'll probably be on a Saturday in early May, just as a first episode. Basically, it's a 5-hour course to teach how to safely transport children in ambulances. Sounds like an awful lot of time to say put on a seatbelt, but the reality is that those buckets that children move around in, you can't actually secure them in an ambulance. So there's a whole lot of different idiosyncrasies to making sure that kids are transported safely. So stand by and stay tuned.
Bears updates? I think we just did that. Gas TV, do you have anything else to add? So those are our new business, we take care of with our QI. Other new business, we got some swapping going on. So Ryan Wood is resigning as the Albany County Director, and Scott Bowman will take over. Scott Bowman is lateraling away from Columbia County, and they will work on appointing a new person. Yeah, yeah. Do we have
So
a-
moved.
All in favor? Anyone have anything else for the floor?
I'll get with you later. I'm not sure.
That's for county EMS coordinator. What did you guys just vote on? County EMS coordinator? Do you know?
It was the Remac.
No,
right?
representative for the Remac.
Okay.
So Brian's not gonna be the Albany County rep, I'm going to be.
Gotcha.
And Columbia County will get a new rep.
Okay.
Anything else from the floor? And I think that was a short meeting.
Yeah, I'm gonna ruin it just quickly.
Uh,
I wanna leave too. I'm gonna make Beth ruin it.
Okay, it's good, going 45 minutes.
Do you wanna speak, you can close the meeting, but do you wanna speak about, Bassett Medical Center and the change in trauma?
Okay, sure. Wondered what bus I was going to be thrown under. Bassett Medical Center has just gone from a level 2 ACS center down to a level 3 ACS, pending level 3 ACS center, due to the fact that they don't have the depth chart for neurosurgery. They had 2 who were alternating call, and there were days that we weren't having coverage. And I believe they're now down to 1. So you may start seeing more coming out of the Otsego, Delaware area coming up this way, because it's a level 3 and you guys are the closest level 1.
I think it'll kind of depend though, if it's not neurosurgical, they can do everything else. I would assume.
Right, so, if anybody here wants, I can forward Rick Mueller's actual final release about the stuff. But in conversation with them, it was basically, if you think that there's a potential for it to need neurosurgery, don't bring it here. So that really leaves Binghamton, Syracuse, and Albany. So, no, Schenectady. So, general EMS field in the Otsego and Schoharie, Fulton, Montgomery areas are now come this way.
And it's because field providers are feeling like that the time spent getting here stops a 4-hour stop at, eliminates a 4-hour stop someplace else sometimes. And I know a bunch of my field providers are going to be more assertive about, listen, it's gonna take us an hour to run to Albany versus if we take them to Bassett, it's gonna be 3 hours plus another hour to transport them. So.
Hopefully it's resolved soon.
The problem is they are recruiting, They are trying to get neurosurgeons, but they cannot get,
They can't hire.
they just can't hire
Everyone's
neurosurgeons.
trying to hire neurosurgeons.
Sounds
Yep.
familiar.
Okay, so it's a systemic problem.
Yes.
So if they did get neurosurgery coverage back, would they want to go back to a level 1 center?
They were a level 2 center
Or
to
level
begin
2
with. I
designation.
don't see that, why they wouldn't. They've got every other, service available. And despite the fact that they don't have neurosurgery, they have 24-hour, spine coverage. So they're saying, you know, be aware of neurosurgery versus spine coverage.
Right.
So they're trying to make us think harder about where we're going.
To be honest, it's hard to sort out spine versus neurosurgery.
Yeah, it would
Yeah.
be,
But they emphasize they still have spine coverage, so.
Yeah, you can go around the city. We take it all or we don't.
Not in this year, not in this region, but again, this decision, this move, brought again the conversation of, boy, it'd be nice for EMS providers to have a laundry list of what services are provided by what hospital.
And fortunately, they are now communicating. At first, they were communicating, and field providers who weren't taking the time to understand, they were being told there was no neuro.
Right.
And
Right.
yes, and that's what
Yep.
field providers who weren't working regularly and asking the right questions thought that they weren't even able to care for strokes. So we got that straightened out, and there's 5 neurologists who are able to cover things, but there was no neurosurgery. And that was a bit of a disconnect when we sat down and talked to them. You're saying there's no neuro. Our people are taking it to mean that there's no neurology, period.
The other thing, and I think this will settle out as we get used to it out there too, but like in small pockets, even last week, I think, at the end of the week, they had a 20-something-year-old who had an onset of the worst headache of her life with projectile vomiting, and the cluster migraine went to Albany. Now, look, if I'm that 23-year-old and it's not a cluster migraine, thank you. But, so, heads up, they're coming this way. Do you have to hitchhike home?
And when we
That bus
spoke
is
with
out
them, you know, they were unaware that, when I spoke to Bassett, they were unaware that when we start getting down on the southwestern corners of the county, Unadilla, Sydney area, it's quicker for us to run to Wilson. They thought they were getting all of that. And we're like, no, we're going to Binghamton. So,
So, it's interesting.
Anything else? Motion to adjourn?